Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to dive right into a really surprising truth about leadership. Humility isn't just some nice-to-have personality trait. It is actually a totally measurable, high-impact leadership tool. We're going to break down exactly how it dictates the flow of information, the quality of your decisions, and honestly, how psychologically safe your team feels coming to work every single day. So, here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with confidence without superiority, look at the ego protection loop, dive into the humble conversation framework, do a little coaching for decision clarity, and wrap up with building a trust culture. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. Confidence without superiority. Redefining professional humility.
Okay, we really need to dismantle this massive myth that humility is somehow about being weak or passive or erasing yourself. People confuse humility with insecurity all the time, but they are literally opposites. Just listen to this quote. Humility is not making yourself smaller. It is becoming secure enough that you no longer need to make yourself bigger. The absolute key here is that healthy, professional humility actually requires deep, genuine confidence. It's what allows you to hold your authority and maintain your standards without needing to act superior. It's the ability to sit at the table and think, hey, I know what I know, and I can contribute, but your expertise absolutely doesn't threaten mine.
Moving on to Section 2, the ego protection loop. What happens when we feel threatened?
Let's be real. It is incredibly easy to be humble when everything is going great, right? But the real test is what happens when our status, our competence, or authority is suddenly challenged. Think about how this plays out in real life. You get a trigger. Maybe a direct report pushes back on your idea in a big meeting. If you instantly interpret that as disrespect, boom, your ego throws up a defensive shield. You start interrupting, you get dismissive, or maybe you just pull rank to shut it down. And the immediate impact? Your team quickly learns that speaking up is dangerous, and that leads straight to what we call information poverty. They stop sharing, and you stop learning.
You can actually hear this happening just by listening to the language people use. When we're stuck in that defensive ego loop, we use defensive accountability. We say things like, well, I only did that because, or nobody told me that. But humble accountability, it totally bypasses the excuses. It owns the impact without spiraling into shame. Shifting your language to things like, I missed something, or here's what I'm going to change. Those are extraordinarily powerful ways to instantly build trust.
All right, Section 3, the humble conversation framework, listening without needing to win.
We're going to take this from a nice theory into a daily practice. But before you even open your mouth, you have to make a huge internal shift. You have to totally abandon the urge to prep your rebuttal while the other person is still talking. If you're standing there silently building your counterargument, you are not listening to understand them. You're literally just waiting for your turn to perform. So how do we actually do this? Here is your 7-step conversational flow. First, you arrive, meaning you regulate your nervous system and check your emotional state before you react. Second, you listen. Focus entirely on their meaning. Third, clarify. Ask genuinely curious, open questions to gather details instead of just filling the gaps with your own assumptions. Fourth, acknowledge what is valid in their perspective. Fifth, contribute your own perspective honestly but without trying to dominate. Sixth, reconsider. Ask yourself, hey, does this new information actually change my initial thinking? And finally, agree. Identify and align on the very next responsible, practical step forward. I really want to zoom in on step 4 for a second. Acknowledge. Acknowledging someone else's truth absolutely does not erase your own perspective. It just makes room for complexity. Acknowledgement is not the same thing as agreement. You are simply validating that they experienced a situation in a certain way, and you're doing it without surrendering your own authority or reality. That is a massive game changer for communication. Moving into Section 4, coaching for decision clarity. Applying humility to high-stakes decisions. Okay, I want to put on my executive coach hat for a minute. If you are a leader weighing a really high-stakes choice using this framework, we need to look at it through a few specific lenses. Lens number 1, ask yourself, does this option actually support long-term organizational health? Use your humility to look way past the short-term ego wins. Are you making this choice just to prove you're right today, or are you genuinely prioritizing the enduring structural health of your team? Next, you've got to ask, are we aligning with our core values? Sometimes our egos just want to protect us from temporary awkwardness, right? So we avoid having that difficult, humble conversation, and we end up bending our own standards. You have to check if this path honors your team's fundamental agreements.
The third lens is the cross-functional impact. Who else does this decision touch?
Have you actually gone and listened to those adjacent teams to gather the real details? Or are you just sort of filling in the blanks with your own assumptions? True humility is admitting you probably don't have the complete picture by yourself. And here is the anchor for this whole coaching exercise. You need to move forward with clear intent. Do not sit around waiting for risk-free certainty. It doesn't exist. Confident humility is what gives you the guts to make the call and take action, because you know that even if the outcome isn't perfect, you can responsibly repair it and learn from it. You don't need to be flawless. You just need to be trustworthy. Which brings us to Section 5, building a trust culture, from personal behavior to team norm.
Let's zoom out for a second and look at how all these little individual moments of communication stack up. Trust is not some magical fuzzy feeling that just happens to a team. It is a highly logical pipeline. Think about it like a domino effect. When you choose humility, it leads to openness. Openness sparks curiosity. Because you're curious, you gather better information. That better information naturally leads to better decisions. And when you have a track record of better decisions, boom, that builds unshakable credibility and trust. It's sequential.
So it basically boils down to this core equation. Trustworthiness multiplied by repeated experience equals a trust culture. You literally cannot just demand trust from your team. It doesn't work that way. The only thing you can do is repeatedly behave in ways that make trusting you an incredibly reasonable, safe choice for them day in and day out. I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to take back to your teams today. Ask yourself, what repeatedly happens around me that makes trust more or less reasonable? Does the environment you cultivate actually make it safe for people to tell you the truth? If you can answer that honestly and with genuine humility, you have absolutely everything you need to transform your culture. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I will catch you on the next one.